So the topic before me is how to structure your business to raise capital and funding for growth. Um, so structuring of your business, that's why I was asking who has business. For any business to grow, you have to have structure. You can't wing your business and do it as you like. In terms of structure, the simple things I mean is the way you do things. You have to have documented processes. You have to have your policies. You need to be able to have the routines. The business has to actually function without you. A lot of us have hobbies. A lot of us have personally paying jobs that we call ourselves self-employed, and without us those businesses cannot run. And I think the greatest thing for me and being in this body of Christ is, apart from knowing that God is our strength and he helps us, which is our number one person, we also have the structure to put in place in terms of the people that support us, the right skill set of people, the right policies to assist us, and the right things to do so that the business grows. From a finance point of view, for people running their businesses, we consider you having structures in also terms of your keeping records. The biggest record keeper is Jesus, after all. When we look in the Bible, you see them saying God says he's going to take account of what is happening. At the moment, we are also doing a lot of studies in church that are saying your talent and what you are doing with it. And how would we know that somebody's talent was 5 and there was 5 more if there was no records? So this whole record keeping is big. And the record keeping is not just the numbers. The record keeping is for even the data that supports the work we do. The record has to do with the sales. It has to do with the people we're hiring, the skills. The records can be various kind of things, which is really, really important for your business. So I'm trying to squeeze this whole thing I've done into 10 minutes. And pardon me if I'm rambling. So we had a... Okay, so yes, so structure really talks about just order. It was a buzzword for the better part. Everybody is saying you should have structure, you should have system. And in fact, after a while, it just seemed like, all these Gen Z things we are hearing, I don't even know what it means. And in my head, when I think structure, I think of two analogies. You can put water in a basket, and you can put the same amount of water in a bowl, and that's when you see the difference. And the structure is what we are calling, the ability to hold the water is what we are calling structure. And not having leakages and not having any wastage. So we take example of even things like structure. We look at places where you can develop integrity, because you need to protect your name or the name of your entity or what you are building. That requires structure. You need structure for your wisdom. You need to sharpen your skills. You need planning. You definitely need to have plans and, like we said, systems. If I were to give you two businesses and I tell you that there was business A and business B, one has an amazing product. It doesn't have any accounts. It doesn't have any contracts. And there's a product B that has average products, has financial records, it has traction, is growing, is scalable. That is what anybody who wants to invest to really look at, because they're looking at the story, they're looking at what you are selling, what are you bringing. They're considering your person, your knowledge, your background, your passion, and those are the things they would decide to listen to before they now get into this whole numbers situation. So it's not just about making profits. It's not just about having a company. And in terms of structure, beyond the profits, is also having things that make you stand. You can't have a company where you're spending from your private account or people are paying you privately. You can't have a company where you're not registered, or you don't have your taxes done to date. You can't have companies that you don't have any records of your account. You don't know how much you're spending. You don't know what is coming in, or you are making a loss and you're doing it as you like. You're winging it. So those are the kind of things I meant when I was talking about structure. So we would always look at what is attractive. I want to use the analogy of when you're looking for someone to marry. I know it's, well, it is some form of investment because you're putting your time into it. Yeah, it's, but what do you consider? You don't just consider what you see. You consider the things that would generate future economic value, and hopefully things that you'd like to see in people you call your children. So to some extent, our businesses are children. They are corporate children. You want the best for yourself, and you want to get the kind of returns. You want to even be able to put it aside and let somebody run it, and you see the dividends, you see the benefits beyond yourself, you see the impact. Some businesses have social impact. Somebody talked about fashion. I would like to see you later. Some people have recycling, and then some other people just do things like myself that may be locked up behind chairs, but somehow, some days, sometimes our work comes out. But whatever it is, our hands find doing, I pray that we do it with all our heart and we do it well. Because beyond everything we do, excellence is a ministry. The excellence we do is a calling. The work and the way we do it speaks beyond what we are doing. Sorry, pardon me, please. My notes went. So 5 pillars for fundable businesses. You must have. You must have a vision. So I'm glad that we all have very clear things we're doing. And sometimes with the vision comes a bit of, clarity. We have a big church, we have all sorts of projects we're doing, and now we still have this as a vision to help ourselves. And I really, really love this group because when I said I'm a mentee mentor, I'm looking for opportunities to learn as well. People have different areas of work that they're involved in that can transform the way you're doing things. And so have a very open mind. But to have a vision, the Bible says we should write it and make it plain. If it's very confusing, if you don't understand it, if it's too layered, then you may need to sit down and redefine it. And it's okay if your vision changes from time to time, not totally drastic, but if you get better and fine tune it as you go along. But you need to know what you're doing. So that's the first pillar. Then we spoke about structures already. We said we have to write systems, the right people, the right processes, and to make sure your business is scalable. And then now we'll speak about financial discipline. Know your numbers. Nobody can know it for you. You must know what you're doing and let it count. Don't waste your time. If it's not working, then, let's see how we can do a better job. You need to segregate your accounts. We said that you need to have a budget. Sometimes, for me, a lot of these things were so textbook and it seemed like what you should say until you get in trouble. You can't spend more than you earn. You can't build, count the cost of what you are doing. I love the Bible, and for me, having a business now just makes me see things from God's perspective like never before. When you're saying somebody had 1 talent and they didn't do anything with it and collected him, and the day I had to fire somebody, I thought, I get it. If you're going to be a waste of time, might as well just, let somebody who is doing something and who will yield more. That's why we didn't give the one with 5. You collect this one, So we need to have budgets and know what we are doing with it. We need to keep records. Good records, not malicious ones of the HR team that will be looking for different people, but good records that make a difference. And in finance, now in this era of data, our records are not only just the numbers. The records of your clients, client satisfaction, who is buying what now, what kind of skills should we be doing, trainings that we should be having, what we should be doing better for ourselves. And so the fourth structural thing is to be compliant. Please, we spoke about registering your business. As I begin to round up, if you have a business that doesn't have a name and a CAC, please, you don't have a business. You have a nice idea that is a good start. But in fact, I think for a long time, I don't know if it's closed, to register a business is free now. It was free when they started this tax. Sorry? I can't hear you. Okay, it's seamless. Smidan is right. Okay, but for a couple of months. Okay, so I know for a couple of months it was free. You can, and there was a target of about 3,000. So if it's no more free, then they've reached the target or are no longer, So please register a company, register it and have a decent name that kind of shows what you're doing very well. Pay your taxes. Don't argue about what the government is doing. We're all upset, but let's do what we have to do, right? Have contracts. Even if you go into a business with your friend, if you consider a partnership and you want to do something like that, please have contracts, have a way to act professional and cover your tracks. Protect your business, and you might have a lawyer friends. The good thing about being small is you have leverage. You have this kind of groups. I believe I heard somebody is a lawyer in the group. We can all exchange numbers and see how we can help each other. That's what we're here for. And then you build structure that way. And then we talk about integrity. You see, this part is what differentiates us from everybody else. You can't do anything and anyhow. Please don't lose your cool. Don't give aura for aura. Be professional at all times. Make sure the work you do speaks well. In our church, our mantra is making greatness common. So when I serve you and I do my bits and you see the God in it, it is a ministry, like I said before, and we do our part. Okay, so then raising capital. I don't know whether anyone here is raising capital or what part of the scale you are, but really to raise capital or the volume of capital you want to raise really is based on the stage of a business you're in. Most people start businesses like I am a service provider, so all I needed was my laptop, and we were able to start. But I'm not sure what you may need to purchase. A lot of people start with their own funds, so you look at your personal savings. You consider your personal savings. You go into your friends and family list and see who you can speak to, and you can get some funds from and be accountable. So as you're using people's money, remember that they've put trust in you and don't burn the bridges. Some people can go to banks. Before you go to a bank, you should probably have consistent level of income that you can support, because that isn't free. You pay interest on that. You can consider angel investors, those who want a piece of your cake. So if you own the whole company, they would like to take a portion of it, and they provide mentoring, which is good. You sometimes can even have strategic investors, like the lady that said she's a tailor. She can have a textile company reach out to her to say, let's do partnership. You buy from me, and every time you sell, I also, get my business to do better. So there's all sorts of things you can do. But as you can imagine, it depends on your size. If I'm just starting and all I'm sewing is aprons, I don't really think anybody knows me so well to reach out to me with things like that. So your friends and family will be your best bet. So I think for me now, I'm just going to round up and say thank you so much for listening. I want to charge you to please consider where you are. If you don't have a vision, please write it down, consider it and begin to streamline it and, note it down. Get your own separate bank account. Get your business registered. And if you need help with any of these things, I'm hoping that we've all heard ourselves. We all know the different areas we work in. Feel free to reach out to us. And all of us are us, And thank you so much for your time. I hope this was helpful. So I thought we were going to be a smaller group and it would just be me and my own team. But now that I don't know the people on my team, we're all on the same team. I'm just going to say, please repeat after me. I am called. I am capable. I have integrity. I build with excellence. I build with structure. And I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. Thank you so much.